I think about, I got one buddy. His name is Gerald Pritchard. This man, he's a mathematician by trade, he says. So, smart guy. Random encounter. I was going to a very, very small church, and he just happened to be here for some things. The Lord saw fit to put us together. But when I think about this man, I've never heard him raise his voice. I've always ever heard him talk, like when I think about the idea or the image of a meek individual, right? I'm like, man, this dude, he's got it figured out. He doesn't react in a crazy way. He doesn't, I've never seen him get flustered at all. You know what I'm saying? Now I think about it. I've never heard it. And I know this man, this is like the dad I never had type guy. Like, I know him well enough. We spent a lot of time together and all that. And he comes to my mind. I can think of a lot of ladies, though. I can't say that. There's like every church has the one kind of like church mom that kind of exhibits these qualities, you know what I'm saying? But when I think about dudes, I got a list of one. It's interesting. It'd be nice. It'd be nice if, and it's tough, man. It takes all different kinds, right? But anyway, let your gentleness be known, right? Also want to be clear, gentleness is not an attitude of cowardice or showing a lack of courage, okay? Because that sometimes gets conflated. That's not the case. In fact, it's the opposite. This gentleness is a showing of strength inspired by a relationship with Christ. What did Paul say in Romans 8, right? If God is for us, who could be against us? So why am I going to sort of freak out, right? Like, why would I be upset or reactionary or, anything other than like, I don't want him to see me sweat almost, you know what I'm saying? And it's not like that, but like, it's because I shouldn't really be in a situation where I feel like I want to sweat because I know God is on my side almost. You know what I mean? It's a confidence. Like, I don't have to mess around with the piddly stuff that these people want to worry about because I know I've got something important to do. And I know that I've got the only one that matters behind me to do it. Anyway, I know that
I like to think of that concept of taking the high road, because gentleness is not exercising rights, not getting even when you could.
Right.
In that expression, taking the high road, I think everybody looks up to somebody who takes the high road.
Yeah.
Because they could have done something, but they didn't, and you admire them for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It made me think of, if anybody ever watched The Office where Michael Scott went in and apologized, he said, it takes a big man to admit his mistake. I am that big man. So took it. He missed the mark on that one, but you're right. Taking the high road, that's probably a better way to say it. You know what I mean? And why? That's what I would say, right? Like, why wouldn't you? Right? And like the Lord is like, take it, you'll be fine. Right? Yes. Absolutely. Right? Now, I know that if I'm not right with God, I'm not getting into, or if I am right with God, I'm not going to be stressed by a lot of that stuff, right? And how can I know that I am right by God? It's an open one. What do you think? What's one way I could be sure that I'm doing the things God would have me to do? Got it, brother. See? Maybe you were right. See, you didn't open your mouth, but that was smart. Maybe, who knows what would have come out if he was like, nope, I'm not even going to play with it. Okay. Exactly. You can know you're right with God by getting into his word. He's only told you exactly what you need to do. The Lord is near. Now, I learned that this can mean that the Lord is near in terms of how close our relationship is with him, that we have with him, or I guess it could also mean that he's expected back anytime. Both are true. So why not consider both? It reminds me of that passage in 2 Peter in the 3rd chapter where he said, a day is like 1,000 years, right? We've all heard that. The Lord's not slow as some, consider. Like when we think about how long it takes, might seem like a while for us, but the Lord is always near for one, but that's how the interpretation could go. As Christians, we're all well served to live as though he may be returning at any time, but that's obvious, right? We've all heard that from day one pretty much. How about in verse 6? Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and petition. All right, let me ask you another question. Is it fair to say that anxiety can produce irritability or even like defensiveness? It's like maybe not always, right? But even if you're that guy that keeps it together and stifles your emotions, right? At some point, you're on this razor thin equilibrium, right? That anxiety is going to wear you down, right? Perhaps it's a great place for discord to grow, right?
Well, it can do a lot worse than that too. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I just think anxiety is one of those things that I think it's a pretty American problem to have these days. You know, it's almost like we're so prosperous that we don't have enough to worry about, so we create new things to worry about.
What's the biggest problem, America?
Let's
We
figure
don't
out
have
something to.
Yeah, that's it. We don't have any real problems, so we got to make these.
And a lot of our mental issues are actually issues that don't exist, but they exist in our minds, and that makes them real. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. You think about OCD, you think about all these other things that, quite frankly, they wouldn't exist except you keep thinking about it, so therefore it exists. So now you're anxious about it. You're stressed. You don't need to be. It all could just go away, and I fall into that too. But it can get to the point where people do get sick. People do, end up in the hospital just because they're anxious. You know?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it can turn vicious quick. It's a landscape in which mountains are made of molehills, right? I mean, and that could go in any direction. It could, be harmful inwardly, and you know what I'm saying, where people end up hurting themselves because of anxiety. It could be outwardly, where people end up hurting other people because of anxiety. Obviously, it's not desirable, right? But it's obvious why we would want to avoid, insofar as we're able with the help of the Lord, we want to avoid this at all costs, right? Be anxious, I learned, could be translated literally as stop worrying. No surprise there. You didn't have to be a Greek scholar. Yeah, there's the translation in case you guys were unsure. So, but it was a message to the Philippians as it pertains, so specifically, right? This is a message to the Philippians as it pertains to this letter that Paul wrote, but as it pertains to us in terms of the Bible, right? This is an encouragement that we still need to take into consideration, right? Paul didn't just give this negative command, though. He also gave a way to stop doing this. What was the answer? What's the answer to, how do we not be anxious about anything?
Prayer.
That's right. Prayer.
In every situation. With Thanksgiving.
When you think about it, right? 3 prayer terms used in verse 6. Can you guys pick them out?
Prayer.
Yeah, prayer is one of the prayer terms. Yeah, right. You got that.
How about petition?
Petition, yeah. And
Thanksgiving.
yeah,
Or
Thanksgiving.
requests.
Request. You're right. Thanksgiving does fall in there though too. You're right. There's 4 in there, right? But yeah. All right. The encouragement is to let God's power address man's concern. So say it again, right? Don't be anxious about anything, but in every situation by prayer and petition, right? He's encouraging folks to let God handle our concern. Now, if God's divine power cannot have an effect on the problem or bring a resolution, and I'm not sure that there is a resolution to be had for that situation, right? It might not be the one we like, but it certainly is not beyond the Lord. And so when you think about that and you sort of ad infinitum, what is something that is outside of the scope of prayer? Nothing. Prayer is as encompassing as life is. Everything fits within the scope of prayer, right? So he says, be anxious. Do not be anxious about everything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your request to God. This thanksgiving recognizes God's blessing and control of our circumstances. Is it just me, or is it easier to forget about the Lord when we get anxious?
Absolutely.
Am I the only one? So, I mean, and you think about it, wouldn't it be great if it was man, the last time I really got in a bind, the first thing I thought was, I better pray. There are times when I've done that. I wish I could say this every time, but I'm working on it. Right? If your first instinct is to pray, and have you ever heard anybody say, man, I was doing fine, and then I started praying and everything got messed up? Haven't heard that one yet. Anyway, perhaps anxiety happens when we rely only on human resources, right? Is it fair to say that when we rely solely on human resources, we will inevitably land on anxiety. I mean, you look at this, and so I know that seems like a bold or encompassing statement, but think about it. What have the philosophers of the world figured out? I mean, and that sounds like, you know, I sit up here and pontificate. There are some very brilliant men that have thought about a lot of stuff, and women and, you know, academics that have, you know, really made progress in philosophy. But there are these questions that they cannot answer still, that we can answer. And what's the meaning of life? To serve God. It didn't even take me that long. I figured that one out. You know what I'm saying? That's it. But what I'm saying is, this is another thing. When you try to lean on the understanding of human wisdom, you're going to end up in a bad situation.
When you think of Solomon too, like in the book of Ecclesiastes, how the smartest man in the world of all time basically says all his intelligence amounted to vanity, then I agree. I think if it's under the sun, if it's without God, then yeah. It's going to lead to some sort of anxiety.
And yeah, that's right. And he said there too, like, you know, it's God that lets people enjoy the things they have even sometimes. Anyway, so yeah, we need to stop relying on human wisdom for these things. Both prayer and recognition of God's love, power, and goodness can be a cure for that ailment of anxiety, right? God has urged us to pray. So we just looked at a couple weeks ago in Luke, right, in chapter 11, where he gave us this this example, right, where he said, you know, if you ask, it will be given to you, right? Seek and you'll find, knock and the door's open. Where Jesus said that even if you ask for snakes, right, God's not giving you snakes. He's a good. You know how to give good gifts to your kids. How much more does God, right? The last thing about this verse that comes to mind, especially the second half of verse 5, is this. Doesn't it seem to indicate a little bit of self-centeredness when we don't lean on God? Kind of the opposite, right? Why am I anxious? So, like, this is what I'm saying. So we built this case. You lean on human understanding, you land on anxiety, right? Think about this the next time you come up against something. At the end of the class, when I ask you to pray, Gene. So, I'm messing, man. He's like, I'm not coming back to men's study no more. I'm just saying. So, but when the next time when you come up against some anxiety, well, then you pray. Well, if you think like, you know, I don't need to beat this. You guys get what I'm saying? Like, if the challenge comes up and I lean on my own understanding, then I land on anxiety. I mean, it's a real quick exchange. It doesn't take that long. It's not this long endeavor where you're like, I wonder if anxiety shall upon me. You know, it's like you just get it, right? Just as quick though. You want to combat it. Anyway, in verse 7, and the peace of God, here's what you can expect right there. For the troubled church at Philippi, peace would have been a welcome and divine promise, right? Even when specific prayers are not answered, though, the believer, or answered in the way that the believer wanted them to be, the believer can certainly have peace, okay? I learned that there was Philippi was protected by Roman garrison, okay? You guys check me out. I don't know if this is right. This is what I read in the commentary. And so Philippi was protected by this Roman garrison. And they said, imagine a soldier standing guard, right? And anxiety comes up. Anxiety personified comes up to the gates and is denied passage into, like, in this case, if personified, it would be Philippi. But for us, right, if we have the Lord standing guard type thing. So when the anxiety comes, it's denied passage, right, in our hearts and minds when we lean on God. You know, you really can't expect to do it on your own. We're getting close. Go ahead, Seth.
Yeah. You know, I just think one of the reasons, there are many, but one of the reasons why I'm a believer in Christ and the Bible and everything is because, it's because I see the world mimic it all the time for their own benefit. You know what I mean? Whenever there's a true fact in there that they can use, you know, that the experts can use or whatever and pretend like they did, then they will. And I just think about almost every time, like what does the world teach? What's the common wisdom about dealing with pressure and anxiety and working under pressure and all that? Don't they always say like, well, take a breath, breathe, go slow, things of that nature. And boy, like I think about things, I don't really know about yoga or stuff like that, but I'm all the time hearing about, oh yeah, you just need to do these relaxing exercises and all this other stuff. But it sounds an awful lot like what we would do in prayer.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like when we come to God, that's exactly what we're doing. We're taking a breath, we're voicing our concerns to God and allowing Him to deal with them.
Yeah.
And it's almost like the world has just kind of done a cheap knockoff of what this verse is talking about. And even they see a lot of benefit in dealing with anxiety just from kind of ripping this verse.
I'm telling you, man, said you're helping a brother out this evening. Because you're right. I've seen it. I saw it in the private sector. Servant leadership, that's a buzzword in, corporate circles. Guess who originally? Yeah, servant leadership. That's what they were looking for. People that would go manage a team by serving the team and not themselves to climb the corporate ladder. This was a mentality. That's why I was able to do this. I was like, oh, this is my lane. I've been doing this for a while, Mark. But you're right, they do.
It makes me think, talking to people who've been through the Carnegie Institute, one of the things they always tell you there is dealing with anxiety. Always picture what's the worst thing that could possibly happen. And if you can deal with that, then everything less is okay.
Yeah.
If we're a Christian, what's the worst thing that can possibly happen?
Hell.
You know what I mean? And God's in control. So it's the same
I know.
principle there. So
Hell's the worst thing.
don't fear a man who can all he can do is kill you.
I was gonna say hell's the worst thing, but we sorted that out through
Yeah.
Lord. So
Yeah.
Another thing they tell you in that is what to do about the problem, pray.
Yes.
there you go.
That's what they
That's it. And you know what? There's all kinds of like self-awareness like techniques that people use. But it's like, man, I don't know if you want to be more aware of yourself. You've been letting yourself down for a while now. You need to stop leaning on yourself. You don't have a good track record. Okay. Which transcends all understanding. The peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds. This is not the first or the last time Paul recognizes how divine realities go so far beyond our conception or what we can even think of. Not only is this the case that we can understand how good God is, but this would also lead us to understand that this peace is transcendent, right? It's beyond how we can even conceive of this idea of peace, beyond or above the range of normal or merely physical human experience. God's peace is greater than and does not come from human scheming or planning. And it will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. Hearts and minds indicates the entire inner being. And I have here, let's go to Matthew 6:27. Let's see what that, I didn't write what I put, and I'm drawing a blank. Martin. Oh, very good. We'll end on this question. Anxiety does you no good, brothers. Okay. Don't be anxious. Lean on the Lord. Not only that, but when you do, you can expect peace that's transcendent. When you don't, you can expect anxiety, and I'll give you the answer to this one. No. Right? No, you cannot. Okay. What are we going to do this week now? Praying for James, please. Exactly. Let's all stare at Zach. All right, Zach, you're up. What are we praying for this week?
Come on. What are we praying for this week? Understanding of the word. More
Oh, that won't do. Here we go. You know what I was telling Adam earlier? The way. That's like the coolest. You need to show him the way. Roger? What shall we pray for this week, my brother? Anything that has to do with not being around power lines.
Right.
Well, that's part of my.
Was-
No, worrying around under the power.
Okay, all right, yeah. Yeah, let's see, that's just a general, let's say, anxiety and recall, right? So as soon as it pops up, you're like, oh yeah,
That's it.
take this to the Lord. Professor?
Well, the thing that impresses me personally is we read the Bible this morning, we're going through the Bible, we're in the Old Testament now. And my wife and I will constantly make a comment, and that's not all about that.
Yeah.
One of the most thrilling stories. And I just think, I wonder how many times we've forgotten to tell the simple stories of the Bible. I mean, the story of David and Goliath, the story of Elijah, and bringing this child back to life. There are just so many thrilling stories in the Bible. And it really helps me during the day to get my day started out that way. But one of us is going to say to the other, I knew it was wrong all the time, but how long has it been since he even thought about it? That's why the discipline of being in the Word as much as you possibly can is extremely important.
I think that's a word that we don't use enough, discipline. Get some discipline on your butt. Stop messing around. We got work to do. Have the discipline. Jay?
I think mine's still the same.
Yes. Willie, anything to add? We got your sons here.
No, I think that's.
Let's keep them in prayer. Charlie, wisdom and guidance, we already know. Mark, we have another sermon coming up. So.
Yeah, there's one every week.
This is a big, yeah, this is huge, man. Wow.
Nobody's bringing tomatoes or eggs or anything to Discovery, right?
Mike, you never know what might go down in Cocoa, man. It's wild.
Outside that garden.
Oh, that's right, there's a garden right there.
Vegetation.
I'm not a gardener. I've mostly been like a city guy. And they were showing me, and at first I was like, oh yeah, okay. Oh, you put the wood together, put some dirt in it. I went out there a couple weeks ago, and it's like all the stuff is grown. You can, like, I didn't bring a lunch. I'm in my office. I walked out back, get some beans, get some carrots. I was like, oh, I get it. I get it now. Yeah, it's super cool. All right. Great. W.
Still the nation and possible job opportunity.
Greg B.
Still praying for opportunity to share the gospel. They're not beating down my door for it, so. I'm not the type to stand on the street corner and hand out tracts, although I could, yes.
Really?
Sign.
So at least you do it.
Yeah.
I want to ask prayer, actually, so,
Don't forget Gene, he's good to
and Billy. All right, Gene, you're up. Not to pray. What shall we pray for this week, though? Because I messed with you so long that you're like, what? No. So,
Can I continue with my?
yeah, actually, I already had to check this right, but I did not ask you.
Yeah.
And Billy.
So this is something collectively we're praying for, or collectively and personally, or?
You can. It's something that, so like every week, we're putting down, all right, we're going to pray. And then we're going to talk about the next week, how did it go? It doesn't have to be something new every week. You don't have to have an answer every week. If anything, it would make more sense for us to be consistent like this. You know what I'm saying? And have the same thing week over week if we don't have any change. But yeah, that's the point. So what, because, well, I'll tell you, I look at this list and, I'm I'm sure that Mark and Seth and, we're looking at it and praying like for you guys, but like, it's not like a requisite. You don't have to pray for Gene's thing, but you may.
No,
if you
no,
like.
I just,
Okay.
I just wanted to get a,
Oh, okay. Yeah, an idea what we're doing. That's right, man, because you haven't been
yeah,
in here, so.
yeah.
But that's what it is. We're putting up, what is it that we're praying for this week?
Okay, so, first and foremost, I will continue to pray to God for guidance on these times. And sort of be a filter, because with the deluge of information and turning on the news, and it's the same old thing, that leads into having to lean as much as we can on the Lord to filter this stuff out, put it in the right, help us put it in the right context.
Yeah.
And take away the anxiety that the media is creating. So I'll continue to rely on him.
Good.
And then I've got a ministry that we have in a karate dojo that I'm going to pray that we can get back in a timely and healthy manner. So it's that too.
That kick punch ministry right there. I want to talk to you about that afterwards. Oh, this week though, I want to ask prayer for my sister. Willie, I think you said something about how difficult this can be. And I don't raise my voice. The difficulty is we both went to church. We both, gave our lives to Christ about the same time. She veered off. I went further in to the fold, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So it's exceedingly challenging. And through the course of this, like, studying First Peter and looking at this again, I'm like, you know what? I have really been remiss in talking to her in a real way. Because if I can't, I don't know who can. You know what I mean? My sister and I grew up. I'm kind of like her brother, dad, if that makes sense. So I want to ask prayer for that because, it's I feel like it's a little selfish, but I mean, I just want her to get back into the fold, stop messing around because, you don't know. Vapor and mist doesn't stick around long. And so I want to be more pointed with it. And also, there's a young man that I met in a class last semester. His name is Daniel. He doesn't know the Lord, but he knows me, and he likes me okay. And I know God, and I plan to introduce him. So, yeah, definitely lift him up. But that looks good, man. I love this. I look forward to Monday nights and coming to see you guys and talking about prayer and getting after this in the Word. So almost hate to see it end, but I think we're ready to roll. So while we close in prayer, Willie, you prayed for us, right? Who absolutely